This is the Prodigal Perspective, presented by EA Recovery.
Welcome back to the show. We're your host. I'm Damon.
I'm Justin.
I'm Matt, and this is the Prodigal Perspective.
So for the past 2 months, we started this podcast not knowing what real direction we were going to go with it. We've had very difficult conversations. We've had very highly debated conversations in the recovery world and also in the faith-based world as well. But we have brought somebody new on the podcast. His name is Spencer Kilgore. He's got more credentials than anyone at this table. Don't know if it's cool to say that or not.
So embarrassing.
So embarrassing. But our goal here is to embarrass he and his wife as much as possible now. So we're also venturing into bringing other nonprofit ministry leaders on, people that work in recovery, people that don't work in recovery, people that are pastors, that are deacons, or whatever the case may be. We're just trying to expand this platform and use it all to glorify the Lord as best we can. So this week we are honored to welcome Spencer to the program. He is the Director of Community Relations for Project Hope and Saving Grace. It's a network of recovery ministries across 8 campuses in 5 different states. Is that right?
Yes, sir. 8 campuses in 5 states.
Yes, and he is also the executive pastor at Community Transformation Church in Morrilton, Arkansas. And dude, I got family in Morrilton. Actually, my wife's dad lives in Morrilton.
Oh, so, come on, somebody.
That's really cool.
Hey,
beautiful town.
Beautiful town of Morrilton. Yeah, it's a pretty amazing place. It is kind of, laid back and chill, I guess. Yeah. So we've invited him to come in for a sit down and just share his story and his heart, and hopefully this conversation just takes us where we want it to go. Disclaimer. We have never really met in person, so this is kind of the metaphorical blind date, if you will. I'm sorry I'm not better looking. Same,
brother, same.
So Spencer, man, for people who don't know exactly, what you do, could you kind of enlighten us on a little bit of what you get to do every day?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and before I get to that, I'll just say, before I get to what I do, can I share a little bit about who I am?
Please, man.
Yeah. Because I think that'll, who I am just drives what I end up doing with my life, right? Yeah. Well, I would say for starters, the biggest thing that I've been good at in my 42 years of life right now is probably failure.
Wow. I think we can all relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's so ironic that I even get the opportunity to come out and to hang out with guys like you and be a part of stuff like this. Because I grew up in Northeast Ohio and was raised by a single mom. And it was just like, that stereotypical story, right? That mom did the best she could with what she had. And I was an only child. And a few things happened that kind of molded and shaped me into, the person that I am. The first thing is that when I was a teenager, I went through the phone book back when, we still use a phone book back in the day, right? So I tried to find my dad, and I found his name and looked him up, and a couple of my boys took me out to his house in, Youngstown, Ohio, and I was able to reconnect with my dad as a teenager. Yeah, it was super exciting. Got to meet him and my stepmom, and we hung out that night, and because I've always known and believed that every child wants their father.
Yeah.
And so I connected with him and found him that day. And before I went home, my dad asked for a ride because his truck was broke down. And so we gave him a ride up the street into Youngstown. And that was the day that I took my dad to get heroin, and the day that my dad introduced me to heroin.
Wow. Talk about a father wound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I ended up going through like the rest of my teenage years and well into adulthood. Wanting a father, yearning for a father, being a father, and not having a real roadmap on how to do it. Yeah. And it really defines so much of, who I am and how I do ministry and why I want to help people and why I want to help kids and dads. Yeah. And then my lungs collapsed, and they collapsed 5 times over the course of 5 years. So from 17 to 20, or 4 years, from 17 to 21, my lungs collapsed spontaneously 5 times. The doctors told me that it happens spontaneously to tall, skinny people. And so just got dealt some bad cards genetically, I guess.
Yeah.
They never really figured out why.
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, how did that happen? Like, yeah, I guess you say genetics. So, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the older I get, the skinny jokes don't really hit very good anymore because now I have something developing that I didn't once have. And
Compared to everyone at this table, I think you're doing really well in that. So
I appreciate your ministry. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a side effect of recovery.
yeah.
Right?
Cross addiction.
I ended up going to a bunch of rehabs, got hooked on drugs, started getting high when I was 13 years old, and it was really just because I always felt like I was in a room full of people but was alone. And I realized over time that some of that was very true because we moved around a lot. My mom had this phrase that she would always say, and she would say, "Spence, I'm ready for a change." And I knew when my mom said those magic words, we were going to move again. Yeah. And so we moved around a bunch, and started getting high when I was 13 years old, and things just got from bad to worse, and just wanted acceptance, wanted a dad, wanted a companion, all those different things, and all the places that I looked for and searched for it, and, found myself in my early 20s as a convicted felon, and had my first child and was, by all accounts, a deadbeat dad, did not handle my responsibilities, couldn't do it, couldn't be trusted. My mom used to put her finger under my nose, and as I would crash out of her house at night just to make sure that I was still breathing.
Been there.
And I went to a rehab in Northeast Ohio called the Neil Kennedy Recovery Clinic, and I went every September for 7 years in a row, and I would detox and maybe meet a girl or, do something, and inevitably I would self-sabotage and, I just couldn't keep it together, and kind of ping-ponged and just lost all my teenage years through early adulthood until I was 26 years old. And I had a moment where I looked at myself in the mirror, and the creature that was staring back at me was not very handsome. I probably had yellow jaundice eyes. My skin was gray. I mean, I was malnourished. Muscles were atrophied. Yeah. And a few things happened. And I know I'm giving you a really long answer just to kick this thing off.
That's what we want. I think that helps us get to know you a little bit better, and that way that'll invite more questioning for sure. So, yeah,
for sure.
We're good.
Yeah, man, thank you. And so, I started to think back on like, how in the world did I end up here? And just remembering like going for like walks with my mom when I was a kid, and like just like talking about my dreams for life, and then looking at what I had become, and just saying, how in the world did I start out here and I have ended up way over here? And I remembered back to two things that gave me hope in that moment. This was in late 2009, early 2010. The first thing is I remembered when I was probably my son's age. I was probably somewhere around 11, 12-ish. And I went to a Lutheran church camp that my mom had sent me to, probably because she needed a break, or she was like, all right, I can get him to go to this camp for a couple of days. I can get a little breather. Yeah. And so I went. And I remember trying to like pal around with the older kids and try to follow them around, and them kind of like pushing me off, like, man, find something to do with other kids your age, But the other thing that I remember is that during that Lutheran church camp, every night they would have worship. And it really wasn't very typical for this particular Lutheran church now that I look back on it and think about it. But like, it was like super, I don't want to say charismatic, but it was really progressive worship, really demonstrative, expressive worship. Yeah. And I went there, and I don't remember what was preached on that night, but what I do remember is me being a very, very young man and going to this outdoor Lutheran church camp, and the worship team beginning to strum their guitars and to worship, and the Spirit of God made my heart tender. Wow. And something happened at that church camp where I began to weep. And I knew even then that I got a taste of the Spirit of God and that God was real. And so when you fast forward to 2009, 2010, when I'm strung out on heroin and just hopelessly hooked, right? Just can't get through the day without getting my fix. I had a moment where I remembered that church camp. And I remember times when I would be stuck in addiction and I'd be totally strung out. And the closest thing that I ever had to a father, which was an African American pastor of a little church called We Walk by Faith Bible Church on Himrod Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio. Pastor Ronnie Tucker would pick me up and he would take me to church and to a Wednesday night service. And he told me later on that there were all these people from church that were like, man, I don't know why you're messing with him anymore. Like, he's just using you, because he'd give me $20 and kind of give me a little lifeline to keep me going, as I was just a totally lost, hopeless person. But I was able to look back on those things. And the second thing that I looked back on was a church service that Teen Challenge had come to. And it was another outdoor service. And there was a young lady that I used to go roller skating with. And she was more wild than I was. And she was wild back then. And I knew she had gotten in some trouble. And then I seen her, and she was sharing her testimony at this outdoor Wednesday night church service in Niles, Ohio. And she shared how she had gotten her kids back, and she had all these good things going in her life, and God had saved her, and she had been clean and sober for a couple years. And I kind of second guessed myself when I attended that service, because I looked at her when I was still strung out in my own addiction, and I started wondering, like, does she just look this way because it's an outdoor service and it's the sun shining down on her, you know? Because I'm a very, like, pragmatic, practical Christian, you know? And I'm like, I don't want to, like, super spiritualize what I think I'm seeing right now. But it's been too long for me to second guess it. When I look back now, I know that her whole countenance had changed because God had done something in her and through her, and she was changed from the inside out.
So your story, like, you know, going to a church, man, like, and hearing a testimony or seeing like a testimony from someone you knew before, and now they're, you know, through the power of Christ, their life has been changed. You know, that closely relates to some of my story. You know, I was at a church and definitely strung out. I was living with my mom on her couch, and I'm 37 years old at the time. Like, I had been through marriages, destroyed all this stuff, and I find myself at an altar at a church in Hope, Arkansas, much the same way. Like, I've never even heard of faith-based ministry before, and Renewal Ranch was there doing a service at this church. I'm looking for a rehab the next day. And so, I mean, you know, like, one of my favorite expressions is like divine intervention.
Yep.
Like, that happened. And I'm hearing that in your story, man. And so, me, that's really hitting home, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And for your story too, man. And just like looking back on our lives and just seeing God's sovereignty and his faithfulness and his mercy towards me. And like, it's like, even when I preach, I talk about it so often. I'm probably just like a broken record, but I'm like, what about all the bad things that could have happened to us that didn't?
Yeah.
And just sitting with that and just saying, oh my gosh, I have so much to be grateful for.
Like, I mean, this right here at this table, it is God's sovereignty. You know, it's, and not to like jump ahead of notes or whatever. I'm just kind of going off the cuff here a little bit, and definitely want to hear the rest of this, you know, but it's like God has taken what was completely broken, and he is raising up leaders and pastors and, you know, ministry recovery leaders, and just every way he can. He's taken what was broken, what the enemy meant for evil, and using it for good. And like, he is dispatching like leaders in platoons all over this state, and hopefully like other states as well. But I just see that more and more. And it's not that we go in to fix our trauma. Like, we're going in these ministries for training. You know, and that's, I try to tell our guys that a lot. Like, man, you never know who can be watching you. You never know who needs to hear your story. You never know, like, who you will be able to reach. Take it serious, you know, and it's just, a lot of people don't. I mean, definitely we see that here, but some do, you know, and it's just really cool. But, man, keep going, dude. Like, I'm definitely interjecting where I can, but you say things like sovereignty, I'm like, oh my gosh, that speaks to my heart. Like, so, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, because, you know, when, I guess another part of my story that I didn't mention that'll tie in when we talk about God's sovereignty is that when I was a kid, my best friend was a Messianic Jew, and we spent every day together. I mean, we would go to school together. We would come home and play sports together. He was always way better than me, and I was always insanely jealous of him. But he was my best friend for virtually my whole childhood. Yeah. But him and I, because of his influence on me as a little boy, I would be in elementary school, like out on the playground asking if I could pray for kids, and just like, like trying to like lay hands on them and stuff like that. I was not very popular for that at the time.
Like, get away from me, weirdo.
It didn't put me in the, exactly. It did not put me in the cool kids club whatsoever at the time. Yeah. But I knew from a very, very early sense, I couldn't articulate it when I was in elementary school necessarily. But looking back on it, I knew that I was called to ministry of some sort. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know in what capacity. I didn't know where. But I knew that somehow, some way, God in his sovereignty had created me to help other people. Yeah. I at least knew that much.
The mind blower is regardless of what you were going to do in life, you were going to minister to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I have a similar experience as a child, being like knowing the power of God and feeling as if when nobody had to tell me. I knew when I prayed that my prayer was pure and it would be answered. And that slowly deteriorated as I got older, and I feel like it got corrupted. And it wasn't, until I had to go through the things I had to go through in order to come back to Christ, in order for that to be restored. But I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I love that. And gosh, when I read the story of Joseph, you want something that's going to hammer home this idea that God, the things that we did and the things that we have been through were not random.
No.
They were not just something that happened that were just discarded and inconsequential. They happened for a very distinct plan and purpose for our lives. And so like when I read Joseph, I get so much encouragement for that, because I'm like, man, all that dumb stuff or the time that I wasted or the things that I did or what happened to me, I know that God is so able and capable to take those, to repackage, to repurpose those, and then to use us for the rest of our lives, so long as we be willing to play a part in it, to try to help people in what I call the people helping ecosystem. But just this idea that there's this whole ecosystem of guys like us that the Lord has kind of raised up, and for us just to play our part well. It's really, really, really inspiring.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good, man.
It's like Romans 8:28. Everything
Yeah.
works together for the good. But yeah, I definitely can relate too, because looking back, like in hindsight now, of not just the past 7 years I've been in recovery, but as my life in a whole, I can see how God put people in my life and put me in places and put me in positions like, to bring me where I'm at and where I needed to be.
Yeah.
Because, it's crazy when I look at it now and I see just how everything happened just at the perfect timing.
Yeah. That's, just our story and how we met. And he and I used to be roommates. We were both in the ranch, per se. Like, you were a graduate at the time, right? Or were you about to graduate when I was living? Yeah, about to graduate. And I was working in the transitional phase at Renewal Ranch. And so we've got a network of friends, one that lives in Morrilton, actually. Just to see how God is continuing to work in our lives and our circle of friends' lives. Like, his brother is the assistant program director at Renewal Ranch. He's going to be on the podcast in March.
Love it.
So, man, it's really cool to sit back and watch how just the Lord's, tapestry over the lives at this table. And it was kind of ironic how we met digitally, I guess you would say. I was looking into creating our internship program, and Blake's like, hey, reach out to this guy right here. And I'm like, all right, and I'd kind of just set it to the side for a minute, and then I finally text you, and then you sent me a bunch of stuff, and, I've looked over that, and honestly, still haven't developed the internship program, but you know how it is. But yeah, man, tell us more, dude. Like, what led you to Arkansas, like, and everything in between that? So it starts at Ohio,
Yeah, starts in good old Ohio, and
The Teen Challenge, did Teen Challenge end up bringing you here?
No, not Teen Challenge. This is what happened. I went and I had that moment that I just described in 2009, 2010, where I'm like, I've got to do something. And clearly the avenues that I keep trying are not working for me, because it's not that I hadn't tried rehab before. Right. It's not that I hadn't tried detox. It's not that I hadn't been to jail. It's not that I hadn't been to the psych ward. I had checked off all the boxes of the usual places that we end up when we're strung out. And so I remembered back to the young lady from the skating rink, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to call Teen Challenge. And I have some family from out on the East Coast that were like, hey, if you're going to do it, go to Long Island, New York. And I said, okay. And so they bought me a one-way bus ticket because they did not want me coming back home.
Similar story.
Yeah. And so I had good old mom and Ronnie Tucker, my father figure, pastor, bought me a ticket, and they seen me off at Youngstown, Ohio at the Greyhound station. And I got off in Hempstead, New York, and got picked up there. And, you know, my running joke to that is that a bunch of guys with like slicked back black hair picked me up in a van when I got to New York, and I was like, "Are these dudes mobsters?"
Yeah,
Like,
mafia.
the only thing, you know, I'm from the Midwest. My only real frame of reference was movies, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these are just like the guys that I see in the movies." Like, what have I got
Picked
myself
up by Joe
into?
Pesci.
Yeah,
Goodfellas.
yeah, you know. And I was like, "Oh boy, here we go." I'm like, "Well, what's the worst that can happen? I've just squandered the last decade of my life, so it's only."
Got nothing to lose for sure.
Hopefully,
There's
an
not much
upside.
they can do to me that I haven't done to myself.
Done to myself already. Exactly. Yes. And so they picked me up, and I went through Teen Challenge in Long Island, New York, in 2010. And there were a few defining moments. One in particular, there was a Czechoslovakian evangelist that called everyone that was under age 30 to come up for an altar call, and I was 26 at the time, and so I did that. And you know, I don't hold any monopoly on theology, and I'm very open to people that believe it or don't believe it. But all that I can tell you is this: is that I went to that altar call, and something supernatural happened to me, where I was supernaturally cleansed.
That's crazy.
And went to bed feeling like I knew already while I was in Teen Challenge, intellectually and theologically, that my life was changing. I knew that. What hammered it home at that altar call was that I began my feelings caught up. My emotional man and my spiritual man caught up with intellectually and theologically what I was starting to understand. I started to actualize. And so that happened, and I completed it, went out to San Jose, California, and I was there from 2011 to 2018. I was the director of their programs there for a long time, man. I love the Bay Area. I know in Arkansas, a lot of people have, you know, opinions about Cali, and I'm like, man, I have nothing bad to say about Cali. I met some of the most awesome people there. I was the director of a family program there where we took in mom, dad, and the kids. We had a 13-unit apartment complex. We had a women and children's center, some satellite housing, some thrift stores, and I just loved it out there. I met some awesome people. I got a call to come back home to Ohio, and so I was there for a few years as director of operations for a 100-bed men's program. I did that for a while until
this was all for Teen Challenge.
This was all for Teen Challenge.
Wow.
Yep. Until I got a call about this little old program in Russellville, Arkansas, called the Hope Center. And actually, my buddy of mine that actually called me about it, we were in Teen Challenge together back in the day. And he's like, man, we're expanding and we got some programs going on and, you know, stuff like that. And he was like, would you want to come to Arkansas and check it out? And I said, man, I don't even remember where Arkansas is on the map. Like, I was like, I know it's the state.
Way down here.
It's way down, right? And but I said, sure. I said, let me come check it out. And so I did. And so we hiked, you know, Mount Nebo, and I got before the Lord and felt like I was supposed to say yes. And so I did. Had my house sold in 30 days, moved here in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Nobody wanted to come out and play. Try telling people about this program that you're trying to build and expand and you know, grow out in the middle of 2020. And, you know, I did my best and just kind of rode that wave. And, so I'm currently the director of community relations for the Arkansas programs. And so we have Project Hope has 26 beds for men. Saving Grace has 24 beds for women. Collectively, the organization does have 300 beds between men and women, you know, throughout our, you know, campuses in, you know, 8 states. And, we're just doing the thing, man. So anything that involves interfacing with the community or fundraising and you know, stuff like that tends to fall on my plate. So I'm always dragging Laura and Billy out to different places in the
So
in the
how
community.
did y'all meet?
Oh yeah, she loves it when I tell this story.
Yeah, gotta hear it.
Yeah, we merged with another organization that she was working with in Missouri in 2022, early 2022. And I was given the task of going out to Springfield and getting to lay the land and preaching a chapel. So my joke is she fell in love when I preached on the story of the 10 lepers out of the book of Luke. She's not on the podcast, so I get to just keep that narrative and just run with it now.
It's a really romantic
Absolutely.
story too. So.
Yeah, just awesome preaching, just rock solid preaching.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And then we got tacos after, and so good preaching and tacos is
Yeah.
always the
Deal.
recipe
there's
to
nothing
spark
better than that.
romance.
I do.
Is what I've learned.
That's funny.
And no, we just hit it off, and I was, I had went through a divorce. I went through a single era. Did not like it. I wish I could come here and be like, oh, it was a great time in my life and God did so much. I know he did, but I was miserable. I didn't like it, just being very transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we're wired for relationship, hopefully the right kind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of how me and my wife met too. She was on staff at the Harbor Home in Conway.
Love it.
And she struggled with alcoholism, but, we definitely met through those two organizations. And it's kind of a running joke, ranch guys always hook up with harbor girls.
Aha. Yes, sir.
There's a few standing couples, though, man, that have really done well in that era. So
No, funny story is Damon would go around looking for donations like furniture and stuff. That way he could take it out there to Harbor Home.
Oh, that's not
Yes.
how that happens.
Yeah, this is the real.
He'd pull up with a trailer and be like, "Look what I got for you."
Look, half truths are lies.
That's called courting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
courting.
exactly.
But I mean, she called me wanting to know if we had any more donations. And, yeah, you know what I mean. So she'll watch this later.
Yeah, I'm not sure intent matters when you're donating stuff.
It
Does it?
doesn't. It doesn't at all. Yeah. So, Community Transformation Church. Tell us about that. Is that the name of it?
Yeah. So Community Transformation Church is actually a collection of 9 churches in 2 states.
Okay.
And so 6 of those are in Texas and 3 of those are in Arkansas. Morrilton, Paris, and Fouke, Arkansas now have Community Transformation Churches. And so I was asked to come on board in October. So it's a new deal for me. And I always wanted to. I just didn't know if I would ever get the opportunity to serve in a leadership capacity at the local church, because for most of my experience in the last decade and a half, I'm always going out with guys or the ladies in the program and going out and preaching and letting them share their testimony and stuff like that. I always wanted to. And then after I went through a divorce, I'm like, well, that disqualifies me in half of the kingdom. So I really didn't know if it was ever going to happen.
That's a good question, but does it really? I don't think so. I think that verse says the husband of one wife. I think it points more toward polygamy. I know that was one of my dad in his later years, working at the ranch. Like we would go around and speak at the ranch, and I think he equated that to me being a preacher somehow. But in his later years, he was coming on with dementia, and he's like, you can't be a preacher. You've been married and divorced and all that. And I'm like, man, I'm not a preacher for one, but two, I don't think that's what that means, and teach their own. I think people get that one wrong.
Yeah, no. I was glad that you see it that way, because I did too, but I knew a lot of people might not.
Yeah.
And so I was very, very, very humbled and very honored just to be asked to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it was a childhood dream of mine. I just never thought, I just didn't know if it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're doing it, man. So the church is in an old movie theater, and so we're doing
cool.
these quarterly movie nights where we're just opening up the movie theaters and getting people out there and got some
Downtown Morrilton.
yeah, the old North Plaza Cinema.
Okay.
So where
Yeah, we're
Ortega's
talking.
is and all that stuff, and you see, oh my gosh, he would kill me if he sees this. Brad, who runs the flea market. Yeah, he has all his stuff out there. So if you see Ortega's, the flea market, in our church, that's kind of what we have going on there.
Who all sponsored this show tonight, by the way? No, just kidding.
Awesome. Shameless plug.
So, executive pastor there, y'all have service obviously every Sunday, like Wednesday night services or any of that is more modern type or interested to hear about
Yeah,
that.
non-denominational, probably a bit of a charismatic slant, which is just so wild that I'm there because from the very moment that I got saved, I've been very right down the middle theologically. I got saved in an Assemblies of God church. I'm a continuationist when it comes to spiritual gifts. Very much butter my bread on that side of the aisle. But I was also discipled for the first year after I got saved by, and he would have no problem saying this, by a 5-point Calvinist. And he just had me into all these books about the doctrine of grace and stuff like that. And I fell in love with theology because of my first mentor that I had.
That's crazy. So I was discipled my first year by a continuous. I believe in continuism to a degree. Like I don't think it's the norm. So I would lean more toward being that reformed side too. And so when I started to dive into that and look at my own life and how it lined up theologically to me and my personal experiences, I've always leaned more toward that way. So I think like we're a direct yin and yang on that. But I mean, Christ and Him crucified, man. That's
Come on.
That's it.
Yeah, and when I listen to like sermons, at the gym or at home, a lot of the guys that I listen to are the Reformed Southern Baptist guys. I mean, give me some Vody Bacham, give me some Paul Washer, give me some guys that are gonna tear the word apart and just break it. When I preach verse by verse,
Love it.
that influence is there when it's just a part of me.
So I actually had a note. Once again, I researched your Facebook page, and there was a quote by Vody Bacham. I forget what the quote was. It says, "The gospel you live by faith and repentance, or repentance and faith is true salvation," or something like
He
that.
talked about yes,
Yeah.
Vody talked about in that clip. It's why I loved it so much because he talked about salvation being about repentance and was it repentance and faith?
Repentance and faith. Yeah.
Yeah, and saying that will produce obedience.
Yeah.
And not the other way around.
Yeah, it's not your works of obedience that are going to produce your faith. It's and of course I lean toward Calvinism. So to me, it's like the ability that God has even given me to believe the gospel. It steers me toward the obedience and the repentance, and it's. We see this in recovery ministry so much. Like you have a person who'll walk through the door, they've went to church with grandma, but yet their life has not exemplified that of the fruit of the Spirit for sure. Yeah. It's that true repentance. Like, did your life transform? Has your mind been transformed? Have you become that new creation? What the Bible talks about, and it's a hard teaching for a lot of people. That are especially in recovery, and they went to church with grandma growing up, and we try to tell them the truth in that though, and so if your life isn't steering that direction, I mean, I don't want to call and say a person isn't saved. Like I think that's a horrible thing to say, but like I just encourage people to really examine their life, man, and see where they're meeting some of that criteria.
Yeah. No, same here. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had a man that challenged me to examine myself. Because when I showed up through the doors of Teen Challenge, if you would have asked me prior to walking in, I would have said that I was saved. Looking back, I do not believe that I was saved.
Yeah, me either.
I really don't. I had never learned what it was like to walk in obedience to God.
Yeah.
And what I'm about to say, I want to preface very, very gently and very charitably before I say this, because I love I've met thousands of awesome people since 2020, since I moved here, but I have learned something since moving to the South, and that's that everybody goes to church.
Everybody.
And it wasn't like that in Cleveland, and so, yeah, just like finding the balance and saying, man, nobody has asked me to be the judge of someone else's salvation here. Lord knows if I'm really honest, I have enough of my own sin and my own shortcomings that I have enough work to do on myself to keep me busy all the way through on this side of eternity. Mm-hmm. But just realizing that the other side of that is that the Bible does speak very clearly about what salvation is and what it might look like. And you can go to the Bible and get a little snapshot of what it looks like for your life to bear fruit or not. And I think that we should pay attention to that.
So, tell us about Project Hope. That's the name of it, right? Project Hope.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, how long is it? I guess it's a long-term faith-based.
It is. It is. It's 12 months long. It's very probably very similar to a lot of teen challenges and some other programs. You know, I learned since I moved here that I believe Arkansas has a very rich, like Christ-centered recovery landscape. I've met tons of leaders from different programs that I didn't even know existed until a few years ago. But it is a year long. You know, obviously it's Christ-centered. You know, we do and allow in our for counseling and things like that. But our real bread and butter is discipleship. It's having a man that has been there, taking a man who's trying to get there and trying to help him get through it. To be able to encourage him, to believe in him when he doesn't believe in himself. And probably to also, in love, call him out on some things.
Yeah, we've definitely for the past, I don't know, he's our assistant director, and we've definitely, for the past few years, we've been trying to really instill that here. Like, it can't always be the people at this table that are the ones discipling. You know, we try to model, the multiplication and how that really happened. And, you know, and we encourage, like, our phase 3 and phase 2 guys to pick a phase 1 guy out, man. Spend time. You know, time equals that influence that you're going to have. And whoever wins the battle of time is going to have the most influence. And so we really try to model that here, man. And it's been a growing thing. It's been challenging.
Yep.
You know, it's super challenging when you have a person that, in their mind, I've never been called to ministry, and I'm not going to. That's y'all's thing, you know what I mean? I just want to, the 9 to 5, I want to find a wife, I want to go home and feed the dog, eat dinner, and watch a little TV and go to bed. I'll go to church on Sunday, you know, and that type of guy, trying to encourage him to be the guy that, hey, man, like, you know, what you're doing here, I get it. I've been there. You know, like, let me help you walk through this. Dude, like, that is probably my third biggest prayer here, you know, among other things. But, yeah, dude, so how do y'all go about doing that? Like, what is y'all's model?
Well, you know, we'll try to tell, you know, some of the guys and some of the ladies at, you know, Saving Grace, and, you know, for some of the staff members that are earlier on in this thing, is if it's a guy in the program and they give me the argument that you just described, and Lord knows I've heard it a million times now, yes. I just try to be real with them. You know, I just try to say, like, look, if you're not, you don't have to be. We always want to create labels for things. And I'm like, you don't have to be called to ministry to help someone. Right. As a matter of fact, all of the data and everything that I've looked at for over a decade now, whether you're in ministry or not, shows that there is this element and this idea of giving back in service of yourself to other people in recovery that then allows you to stay sober, right? The 12 steps talk about it all the time. This is not a foreign concept.
You're about to wake him up over there. I know.
Yeah. Sure. So if you don't want to do it because you're called to ministry, well, don't be called to ministry. Help them. You know what? Help them because you want to stay sober. Yeah. We can start there. I'm good with that.
Well, I mean, I see the success of people that do what we do.
Yeah.
There's something to it. Yeah. You know, I think without this, I don't know. You know, I don't know where I would be. I'd want to say, oh, yeah, I'd be living the great life sober in Malibu. You know what I mean? But that's probably not the case. Yep. I don't know why I said Malibu, probably because Most Wanted. He sent me a picture of that the other day. But,
passages, Malibu.
Passages, yeah, maybe.
I think it's about having a servant's heart. You know, like before I can be a leader, before I can do my calling, you know, as you say, like I have to have a servant's heart. And that's why, like, Galatians played a big role in my life, like early on trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life again, because I'd tried to be in ministry before and it didn't work out. And I went through all this phase where I had a lot of doubt and things like that. Like just becoming okay with the idea that I don't necessarily have to lead. I don't have to, you know, be a minister here. Like I can be a servant, and that's good enough. And that's absolutely what helped me be able to retain like the sobriety that I have now.
I love that. You know, right before we came here, Laura and I stopped at it's a bicycle shop, right? Down by Level Ground in Conway. And the gentleman who owns that used to pastor, and he said, "Man, I got out of pastoring because I felt like I could reach more people by not pastoring."
Yeah.
And so like we're trying to get the church in Morrilton to wrap their minds around that and to act on that too. That like this idea that the work of the kingdom is not just done for the person with the title.
Have you ever heard of Downline?
No.
Downline.
don't
And
think
so
so.
Downline is a discipleship program. I had the opportunity to go through it when I worked at Renewal Ranch. It's a 9-month program, and they are very intentional on. They go all the way through the Bible, but they're intentional on teaching the process of discipleship, and like multiplication, time, and all that. That's kind of how I know a little bit about it. But man, that would be. I could put you in the right place to maybe build a relationship with the guy that runs that in Conway, Chris Keir, to name drop on here. But like where is Chris a pastor at? I forget. His brother was my first boss at Renewal Ranch. I can't remember where Chris pastors at, but
Yeah, but I think when it comes to recovery, it's just trying to awaken the desires of men and women's hearts.
yeah, I wish we could. I wish I was in control of that. Like, hey man, like, open up your heart and like, let me turn this into a heart of flesh. Because it's stony. But yeah,
It's Ezekiel chapter 25, I believe, where God promises
Fellowship.
to take away the heart of stone and replace it with the heart of
kin.
flesh.
Heart of flesh.
you're right.
Yeah, and
Kin.
that's hard to facilitate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. You want people to have a heart change. Like how does that happen? It's different for everybody, and so
Yeah, and just realizing that like your walk might look completely different than mine. Like when I was early on in ministry, I would get so frustrated, and I realized it's because I expected their experience to be like mine. And I expected them to respond and to react to certain triggers and certain little points along their program or after they graduated the way that I did.
Yeah.
And really just me putting on my big boy pants and growing up and getting a little bit older and realizing like this thing might look totally different for them than it did for me.
Yeah.
And just me having to surrender and take my own hands off it, and say, man, it's going to look like what it's going to look like.
I think that's where denomination comes from, is a person's experience and interpretation of the Bible. Like that's why I believe, especially like in soteriology or salvation, the way I do is just because of the way it happened. Like I was not the altar call guy, you know what I mean? But lo and behold, I find myself at an altar at the end of myself.
Yep.
And something happened there. Like something supernatural happened there. I talk about it all the time because I can't get it off my mind.
Yep.
I went there to that altar. I didn't believe in this stuff. Like I grew up believing. Something happened at 11. Like I don't know if it's, I don't know what happened then, but the fruit of my life did not reflect that of a Christian. And then at 37 years old, I'm at an altar, and everything changed.
Yep.
So it doesn't look like another person's experience. I've been doing this almost 9 years, and I've never heard another story that even similarly matched mine until you walked in here today.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's just crazy for me, man.
Yep.
I want to get into the thing that I saw you post the other day.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
I'm
It
always
is
posting. I see my wife roll her eyes there. I'm always posting, brother.
Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast.
yeah, that's good.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I totally stole that from a book I was reading. I wish I could say that was mine. I was reading. I am reading. Oh my gosh, which book was it that I grabbed that from? I think it was from Canoeing the Mountains by Todd Bolsinger, which is a book about pastoring in uncharted territories. And just from a local church standpoint, how do we take our people and move them into God's providence and grace, while at the same time knowing that our world right now looks way different than it did 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, and just trying to navigate through that. And what really blessed me when I read that, and why I posted it, because I liked it so much too, is why I posted it, is he was talking about a church he had pastored in the past that needed some really big changes made. It was a bigger church. I think they had a consultant come in. They identified what it was that needed to change. And in his mind, the first thing that he said was, okay, well, we're going to start to reorganize and like we're going to change some infrastructure and we're going to make some changes. Now that we kind of know that some changes need to be made, we're going to make them. Yeah. And the consultant actually told him not to do it. He said, the last thing you want to do is to rush into just trying to like we diagnosed it, but you're trying to rush in to fix it. He said the way that you actually fix it is by literally you as the leader starting to walk differently, carry yourself differently now that we have figured out what's wrong. Yeah. And let that start to catch on and literally just start to go into your church differently now. Yeah. For a little bit and let that marinate, let people see it, see if people are buying into it. Yeah. See if it spreads, like emotional contagion gets around the church, and see if they lay a hold of that. And so I think that was a quote from it's actually a quote from a different book that he quoted in that book. I forget which one it is.
Yeah, it wasn't titled exactly that, but it was like culture does something to strategy. I kind of looked into the quote a little bit. And I was like, man, where'd he get that? Yeah, I had to Google it for sure. Man, I think we've kind of seen a little bit of that around here too. Like the culture we have, dude, especially it changed when we came to Everywhere Kansas.
Yeah,
like it just did. We were allowed, of course, the funds, to operate really how a program should. I mean, that was definitely helped out a lot. Daniel and I, like, I know y'all can't see him on the camera, but he's definitely behind the scenes, and he is in a lot of the podcasts too. But like, we've really tried to establish a completely different culture here. We do a lot of social media. I mean, obviously, and we're really up on our Facebook pages and just putting stuff out there. Like, we got recovery night coming up, which is not going to be your typical recovery night.
Yeah, when is that one? I know I've seen you.
So February 20th, 6 p.m. I'll go ahead and do the plug on that. We're having recovery night. It'll be, where a couple of us are speaking. We've got some residents, or actually a graduate from the original M18. He's got over 5 years clean. He's sharing his story. We've got
Who's that?
Sam DuBose. We've got a young lady that is graduated the women's side of the program. She actually did she take a different job, or is she still up here, Amy? I can't remember. Both. Yeah. So she's taking a different job now somewhere else, but she's got a couple of years, man, and so obviously that's a part of it. We're gonna have like a lot of games and stuff, and a free raffle. Like, it's not a fundraiser or any of that. So we'll hand out raffle tickets at the door. We've got guys back there making stuff right now, like his little brother-in-law or cousin-in-law or whatever he is. He took a leg from a mannequin and put a pair of, like, one of the Nike Dunks shoes on it and made like the lamp from Christmas Story, out of it.
That's so great.
Yeah,
That's
we're
awesome.
just giving
That's
it
so
away.
good.
It's really original. Yep. But we've got a lot of gifts and stuff we're just giving away, it's culture, man.
Yeah.
It's just culture.
If you remind me, I'm sure we have some stuff at Project Hope and Saving Grace we can bring out for that too, that y'all can raffle off, bless people,
we would love that.
So,
yeah. So that February 20th at 6 p.m. But man, it's gonna be a good time. We'll have free food, all the fixings. We're gonna do actually a live podcast episode from there. So that probably will be the first time that we do go live with this thing. We're just trying to get a little bit better at it.
That's exciting.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's going to be here like the last one.
Yeah.
I love the culture thing, but I actually had thought about this a couple months ago. It's interesting that you posted that when we were talking about it, because like I was in a fraternity in college and we talked a lot about culture then. But like culture to me is the after effect of the implementation of strategy. So like it doesn't matter whether it turns out good or bad, but it's the reaction to those strategic planning and events and how everything kind of turns out. And so I mean, you can plan for things to happen a certain way, but they don't always happen that way. And it might not end up being a good thing that happens, but in the end, you end up with the cultures that is instilled by those events. And the reason I came up with that theory is because of all the horrible things they put us through in college. You know? I mean, they did things I couldn't even tell on the microphone. You know? But anyways,
You went to college?
I did.
It was a lineman or something.
I did.
6'7", you know, like that.
So,
Henderson State University. Yeah.
So for people that are listening, you know, even maybe people that are struggling that are listening, how would you let them? How can we get a hold or know some more information about Saving Grace or about Project Hope? Like, do I have a website or like what's the like admission process or?
Well, we try to be Project Hope and Saving Grace try to be as low barrier as as possible when it comes to intakes. There's probably 2 phone screenings that happen, one with an intake, one with a director, contingent upon those 2 phone calls, you know, and bed availability they can get you in. You know, and projecthoperc.net, savinggracewh.com for the women. My number's 281-743-2713. I'm always out there, you know, to be able to help folks out. The church has services on Sunday morning at CT in Morrilton. That's 10 o'clock on Sundays, 6 o'clock on Wednesday nights. We got some good recovery stuff coming up here in the future, too. We're just kind of getting our feet wet, but we definitely got some vision. We want to be able to, you know, do that and probably a few other initiatives we have at the church as well, too. So,
we would.
yeah.
I'm gonna plug us here. We would love to come share at you guys' church one day.
Come on,
man. We would love it.
Come on, brother.
We were just talking about that the other day. You know, the ranch does this for sure. You know, they travel the state like every week and do it. That's something that we would never want to do, but a few times a year, you know, we have those opportunities to be able to go out and just let our people speak, share their testimony. Like it was a testimony that changed my life. I'm hearing that in your story. You know, it's the blood of the Lamb and the power of the testimony, man. And so, I got a question for, you know, pretty much everyone at the table. And I know we're coming close to time. We got 4 minutes left before the cameras run out. So if there was one thing that you could change in this world, what would it be? And that's for everyone.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's an easy question.
Boy, what a whopper with 4 minutes left, huh?
Yeah. Dang, man, you should have sent that out in the group
The
text
beginning
before
one,
we-
man. It's just kind of flown, you know, like we've just kind of organically done this. I haven't even.
So this is going to sound like a cop-out, but I'm going to give you mine, and it would be me. Because when I wake up in the morning and I look at this gorgeous face in the mirror,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know that I am the only thing that I can change.
Wow. That's, well, I just
Better than mine.
dropped the mic right there. That's good.
That's good.
That's really good.
Yep, I'm preaching to myself when I say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That hits home for sure.
I was going to say destroy politics. Just take
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, that's good too.
I was gonna say end world hunger. You know,
Hey, world peace.
yeah.
I would, I mean, definitely change some of the issues we deal with in overdose. You know, we've lost a lot of people due to that. Been getting to do this for almost 9 years and probably have went to over 20 funerals.
Yep.
Definitely something we were trying to find like smart watches and stuff that you can put on people, and if their heart rate drops or they quit breathing, the technology is actually being worked on, but we never could, you know, finalize anything on that.
Well, that does make me think of something super random, if you don't mind me.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are. It's not ready, but it should be in the next few months. Is we are working on an aftercare app called Meno, which, you know, in the biblical languages means just to abide. And so this is for graduates of Christ-centered recovery programs, with a bunch of really neat features on there. My buddy is working on wrapping that up, but it'll have like options and features where you can book a session with like your recovery coach from back when you were in the program, and all sorts of like metrics and alumni stuff. And we wanted to put that together just to be a gift for parachurch ministries in Arkansas. And so if y'all have any need for that when it's done, just holler and
sold.
we can get you
I can tell you that
onboarded.
right
And
now.
if you like it, you can use it. And if you don't, that's okay too. But we want to offer that to you if you want it.
That's good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the gift of Facebook. I went on one day and said, could anyone help me with this? And my buddy messaged me on Messenger, and he's been working on it for the last few months. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Well, any final thoughts? Any last thing? No, man, it's been a good time, brother. I appreciate y'all coming here. And Miss Laura, I would assume Miss Laura works in recovery too. Is that kind of how that goes?
Yeah,
or-
she's the executive director for Saving Grace.
Okay, so she's your boss.
She's the big boss.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
she's in recovery as well.
Oh yeah.
that's
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
May have the wife interview her one day. You know, that sounds cool.
Come on.
Well, I think that's it for this week. We're going to wrap up once again. Spencer, thank you for coming. Miss Laura, thank you for coming. And until next time.